I remember the day my dog Charlie died. The silence in my home was deafening. His empty bed in the corner of the living room, his untouched water bowl, the leash hanging on the wall, each a painful reminder of his absence. In those moments of grief, amid tears and memories, a question surfaced that I suspect many pet owners have asked. Where is he now? Do animals have souls? Will I ever see Charlie again? These questions aren't merely the sentimental musings of a grieving pet owner. They touch on profound spiritual inquiries about consciousness, the afterlife, and what makes a soul. As someone who has researched spiritual traditions for years, I've found that the question of animal souls reveals much about how we understand our own spiritual nature. Throughout history, humans have formed deep emotional bonds with animals. Archaeological evidence suggests that these relationships date back at least 14,000 years, when dogs were first domesticated. These weren't merely practical arrangements. They were connections that transformed both species. Today, over 85% of pet owners consider their animals to be family members, not property. When these beloved companions pass away, the grief can be as intense as losing a human loved one. The renowned American mystic Edgar, who performed thousands of psychic readings while in a trance state, offered a fascinating perspective on this topic. According to Edgar, animals do indeed possess a form of soul, though different from human souls. He suggested that animal consciousness continues after death, and that the love between humans and animals creates bonds that persist beyond physical life. Edgar's readings described group souls for animals, rather than individual souls. Yet he maintained that beloved pets often develop individualized consciousness through their relationship with humans. The value of animals in divine creation extends far beyond their utility to humans. In numerous spiritual traditions, animals are seen as essential elements of a sacred cosmic order. In Genesis, we read that God created animals and saw that it was good, an affirmation of their inherent worth before humans even appeared on the scene. This suggests that animals have intrinsic value in the eyes of the Creator, existing not merely for human benefit, but as expressions of divine creativity. When we look into the eyes of our animal companions, many of us sense something profound, a consciousness, a presence, an awareness that seems to transcend mere instinct. Science increasingly supports this intuition. Studies have documented self-awareness in elephants, problem-solving in corvids, and emotional intelligence in numerous species. Neuroscientists have found that many animals possess the neural structures associated with emotional processing and consciousness in humans. But does this consciousness constitute a soul? The answer depends largely on how we define soul. Traditional theological definitions often emphasize rationality, moral agency, and the capacity for a relationship with God, qualities historically attributed exclusively to humans. Yet these definitions have evolved over time, with many spiritual leaders and theologians now recognizing that our understanding of the soul may have been too narrow. The grief we experience when losing an animal companion often prompts these deeper spiritual questions. It's not merely sentimentality, it's a recognition that something significant has been lost, something that seems to extend beyond flesh and biology. The bond we share with animals often feels sacred, a corridor to deeper understanding about love, compassion, and connection. As I looked through old photos of Charlie after his passing, his playful puppy days, our hikes through autumn forests, his patient companionship during my darkest hours, I couldn't help but feel that our relationship had spiritual dimensions. The unconditional love, the wordless understanding, the mutual growth, these seem to point to something eternal. In the chapters that follow, we'll explore what various spiritual traditions teach about animal souls, examine scientific insights into animal consciousness, and consider the possibility of reunion with our beloved pets in whatever awaits beyond this life. While definitive answers may elude us, the journey itself, like the relationships we share with our animal companions, holds profound value. Is there something about Charlie's essence that continues? Are the bonds we forge with animals preserved somehow in the fabric of existence? Let's continue our exploration together, with both open minds and open hearts. As I continued my journey to understand what happens to our beloved animals after they die, I found myself drawn to the fundamental question: do animals have souls? This isn't merely an academic inquiry for me. It's deeply personal. When I lost Charlie, I wasn't just mourning a pet. I was grieving the loss of a presence, a consciousness, a being that had touched my life in profound ways. Throughout human history, cultures have offered varying perspectives on animal souls. Ancient Egyptian civilization revered certain animals as divine embodiments, mummifying beloved cats and dedicating elaborate burial rituals to sacred bulls. In Hindu traditions, all living beings, humans, animals, and plants, are understood to contain Atman, or soul, moving through the cycle of reincarnation based on karma. Native American spiritual traditions have long emphasized the sacred nature of animals, viewing them as teachers and spiritual guides with souls as valid as human ones. Western philosophical and theological traditions have often drawn sharper distinctions. Aristotle proposed a hierarchy of souls. Plants possessed a vegetative soul, enabling growth and reproduction. Animals added a sensitive soul, enabling perception and movement, while humans alone possessed a rational soul, enabling intellect and reasoning. This influential framework echoed through centuries of Western thought, often relegating animals to a lower spiritual status. The concept of what constitutes a soul varies widely across traditions. In some views, the soul is defined by rationality, self-awareness, and moral agency, qualities traditionally attributed exclusively to humans. Yet, as our understanding of animal cognition expands, these boundaries have blurred. Elephants recognize themselves in mirrors, demonstrating self-awareness. Crows fashion tools, showing problem-solving intelligence. Dolphins call each other by name, exhibiting social cognition. Apes learn sign language, bridging communication gaps. These capacities suggest that the traditional dividing lines between human and animal consciousness may be more permeable than previously thought. The scientific evidence for animal consciousness continues to mount. Neuroscientists have documented that many animals possess the neural structures associated with emotions and subjective experience in humans. Studies of animal behavior reveal complex social structures, emotional attachments, and even rudimentary cultural practices in some species. While science cannot directly address the existence of souls, it increasingly confirms that many animals possess rich inner lives, consciousness that seems to transcend mere biological function. Some theological perspectives have evolved in response to this growing evidence. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si', suggested that eternal life will involve not just humans, but all creatures in their own way. Theologians like Andrew Lindsay have developed comprehensive animal theologies, arguing that traditional emphasis on human exceptionalism misrepresents divine concern for all creation. I recall reading about the perspective of Edgar on animal souls. His psychic readings, though controversial, offered a nuanced view that animals do possess a form of soul energy that continues after death. According to his readings, while animal consciousness differs from human consciousness, the relationship between humans and animals creates energetic bonds that persist beyond physical life. This resonated with my own experience of Charlie, the feeling that our connection transcended the merely physical. Perhaps what makes the question of animal souls so challenging is that it forces us to confront our own understanding of what a soul is. If we define soul as the capacity for love, for connection, for joy and suffering, for memory and anticipation, then the evidence for animal souls becomes compelling. Anyone who has witnessed a dog's grief at losing an owner, or an elephant's mourning ritual for deceased herd members, or even the apparent joy of a bird in flight, might find it difficult to deny these beings some form of soul. As I sat with my grief over Charlie, I began to realize that the question of whether animals have souls is not just about what happens to them after death. It's about recognizing their inherent dignity and worth during life. It's about acknowledging that the bond between humans and animals has spiritual dimensions, that in our relationships with animals, something sacred is at work. The more I investigated, the more I came to believe that consciousness, that mysterious inner light that makes a being not just alive but aware, does not simply extinguish like a blown candle at death. The energy, the essence of what made Charlie who he was, seemed too significant to simply disappear from existence. The question of whether animals have a place in heaven or an afterlife has fascinated spiritual seekers throughout time. As I continued my search for understanding after Charlie's death, I found myself drawn to examining what various sacred texts and spiritual traditions say about animals in the afterlife. Biblical texts offer intriguing glimpses that suggest animals may indeed have a place in divine plans for eternity. In Isaiah 11:6-9, we find a powerful vision of the peaceable kingdom. The wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. This prophetic vision depicts a restored creation where animals not only exist, but live in harmony with each other and with humans. Similarly, Romans 8:19-22 speaks of all creation groaning and awaiting liberation from bondage and decay. The passage suggests that redemption extends beyond humanity to encompass the entire created order. This cosmic scope of salvation has led many theologians to argue that animals are included in God's redemptive plans. The book of Revelation contains descriptions of animals in heavenly realms. Revelation 4:6-8 describes 4 living creatures around God's throne with features resembling a lion, an ox, a man, and an eagle. While these may be symbolic, they suggest that animal forms have spiritual significance in divine realms. Beyond Christian texts, other traditions offer perspectives on animals in the afterlife. In Norse mythology, animals accompany warriors to Valhalla. Traditional Native American beliefs often include animals as essential spirits in the afterworld. Buddhist teachings extend compassion to all sentient beings, suggesting a shared spiritual journey. When researching this topic, I came across discussions of Edgar's perspectives. His reading suggested that animals, particularly those who have formed strong bonds with humans, can indeed persist in afterlife realms. According to these accounts, the love between humans and animals creates spiritual connections that transcend physical death. Theological interpretations of these texts vary widely. Some conservative theologians maintain that only humans possess immortal souls destined for heaven. They argue that biblical references to animals in paradise are purely symbolic or refer to a restored earth rather than heaven proper. Others, like theologian John Wesley, founder of Methodism, argued that animal resurrection is perfectly consistent with God's character. What is the barrier that should render it impossible for the wisdom and power of God to preserve the one while he destroys the other? Wesley wrote, questioning why God would resurrect humans but not animals. C.S. Lewis, the renowned Christian author, wrote in The Problem of Pain that domestic animals might achieve a higher status through their relationships with humans. He suggested that pets might be granted continuing existence, not independently, but through their connection with their human companions. Pope John Paul II stated in 1990 that animals possess a soul and are as near to God as men are. While the Catholic Church's official position remains cautious on animal afterlife, such statements reflect evolving theological perspectives. Rabbi Avram Molotek explains that in Jewish tradition, the focus has historically been more on this life than the next, but notes that the Talmud mentions Behemoth and Leviathan, mythical animals that the righteous will feast upon in Olam Haba, the world to come. Interpretations of sacred texts concerning animals in heaven often reflect our evolving relationship with animals themselves. As animals have moved from being primarily utilities, beasts of burden, sources of food, to companions and family members, theological perspectives have similarly shifted toward greater inclusion. The diversity of interpretations reminds us that sacred texts are often read through the lens of our own experiences and cultural contexts. Those who have experienced profound connections with animals may find themselves drawn to more inclusive interpretations of these passages. For me, investigating these texts provided not definitive answers, but frameworks of hope. The repeated biblical imagery of restored creation, where lions lie down with lambs and all creation is renewed, resonated with my sense that the bond Charlie and I shared was too meaningful to simply vanish from existence. While sacred texts may not offer explicit guarantees about reuniting with our beloved pets, they often paint pictures of divine compassion that extends to all creation, a vision where love endures and relationships matter. This vision has provided comfort to countless grieving pet owners through the ages, myself included. The question of whether we will be reunited with our animal companions after death touches something profound in the human heart. As I continued processing my grief over Charlie, I realized that while definitive answers might be elusive, there are compelling reasons for hope. The concept of pets going to heaven remains contentious in some theological circles. Those who argue against it often point to the absence of explicit biblical statements guaranteeing animal afterlife. They emphasize human uniqueness, citing verses about humans being made in God's image and having dominion over animals. In their view, animals serve their purpose in this life, but do not share in eternal life. However, others find reason for hope in broader biblical themes. The repeated emphasis on God's care for all creation, not just humans, suggests divine concern for animal welfare that might extend beyond this life. Psalm 36:6 declares that God preserves both people and animals, while Jesus himself noted that not even a sparrow falls without God's knowledge, Matthew 10:29. These passages paint a picture of a creator deeply invested in all creatures. Perhaps the strongest argument for animal afterlife comes not from specific texts, but from the nature of God as revealed throughout Scripture. If God is indeed loving and just, would divine compassion not extend to creatures who experience suffering through no moral fault of their own? Would a God who notices fallen sparrows simply allow beloved creatures to vanish into oblivion? In contemplating what happens to our pets after death, we inevitably confront our limited understanding of eternity itself. Heaven, as described in sacred texts, often defies our earthly categories and constraints. It represents not just continuation, but transformation, a reality where love is fulfilled and suffering redeemed. In such a realm, might not the bonds of love formed with our animal companions find expression in ways that transcend our current understanding? The notion that love itself might be the bridge connecting us with our pets in eternity resonates with me deeply. If heaven is the fulfillment of love, and if the love between humans and animals reflects something of divine love, then perhaps this connection continues in the life beyond. As 1 Corinthians 13:13 famously observes, these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. For those grieving the loss of a beloved animal companion, this perspective offers genuine comfort. The grief we experience at such loss is real and legitimate, not something to be dismissed or minimized. The depth of our grief often reflects the significance of the bond, a bond worthy of acknowledgement and honor. When we lose an animal we've loved, we may find comfort in various ways. Some find solace in rituals, memorial services, planting a tree, creating a photo album, or making a donation to an animal charity in their pet's name. Others find healing in sharing stories and memories with those who understand the depth of the loss. Still others may find comfort in the possibility of reunion in whatever lies beyond this life. In my own journey through grief after losing Charlie, I've come to embrace mystery rather than demanding certainty. The love we shared was real, and that love changed both of us. Whatever awaits beyond death, I believe that love carries meaning that transcends our physical existence. I find hope in the possibility that the bonds formed in love may persist in whatever realm awaits us. The question of animals in eternity ultimately circles back to our understanding of divine nature. If God is indeed love, as 1 John 4:8 proclaims, then perhaps love itself is the thread that connects all creation, not just in this life, but beyond. In this light, our relationships with animal companions may be seen not as temporary arrangements, but as expressions of a love that has eternal significance. For those currently walking through the valley of grief after losing a beloved pet, I offer these reflections not as dogmatic assertions, but as frameworks of hope. Your grief is valid, your love mattered, and perhaps, in ways beyond our current comprehension, that love continues in the mystery of eternity. As we conclude this exploration, I'm reminded of something I heard at a pet loss support group. If love makes a soul, then animals surely have them. In the face of loss, we need not choose between honoring our grief and embracing hope. Both can coexist as we remember our beloved animal companions and hold space for the possibility that the bonds we've shared may find fulfillment beyond the horizon of death. The day will come when I no longer cry when I think of Charlie, but I will always remember the unconditional love, the joy, the companionship he brought to my life, and I will continue to hope that somewhere, Somehow, the essence of what made him so special continues, that the love we shared was not merely temporary, but part of something eternal. Did this exploration of animal souls and the afterlife resonate with you? If you've ever loved and lost a pet, you understand that special bond that defies simple explanation. Click that subscribe button now to continue this journey together. Each week, we'll explore new dimensions of the human-animal bond, share stories of remarkable connections, and discover insights from both ancient wisdom and modern research.